So before we get started on here, I just want to point out, once you install the Python application, you'll notice that there are actually going to be a couple of selections that's going to be involved. The manuals and the module docs are primarily for documentation, but primarily you're looking at this 310 alone and this IDLE. The difference between these two is this is a command prompt, looks much like a DOS command prompt type of interaction, but we're going to be primarily using the IDLE. Now, an IDLE, IDLE, is short for the Integrated Development and Learning Environment. And I just wanted to point out this is what we'll be utilizing as we move forward in this course. So before we jump immediately into here, as you open up your IDLE or shell, you'll notice that sometimes that these fonts are very small, but there is a way that you can increase those font size as I have done here. In order to do that, notice up here on the drop down options, there is the options and configure IDLE. You want to go ahead and choose that, and what this will do is allow you to have the options under your fonts tabs and the size. I think it defaults at 10, and then you can increase that however you may want to, as well as any particular font face type that you might be more interested in. So while we're in here, let's go ahead and look also at the other options under settings. Under highlights, you have the default options here that you see, but you can choose a color for any of these on your preference. The normal code or text, as well as any of the Python strings or selected, etc. Later on you can play with this, but I just wanted you to be aware that this is here. The IDLE Classic is also a default, but you can change this to a dark, which will be a dark background as opposed to a white. And if I do apply, you can see the change as it changes. I find a lot of times it's easier to read the font if it is highlighted as opposed to black on white, as you see in the Classic. But again, the preference is yours, and this is where you would find that and change it accordingly. I'm not going to mess with the keys or the windows. You might want to play with that later on. But for now, the highlights specifically, and how to set up what this IDLE looks like for you as far as the ability to read it a lot more easier.